What is going on, everybody? This is James Generic live here for another edition of Real Steel Sports on Spreaker Web Radio. As you can guess, based on the title of this episode, I will be doing a very thorough summary of the game that was just played on Sunday Night Football between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The start of the game, I think all the Steeler fans, including myself, were a little bit worried because the Ravens got off to a strong start. They really hampered our offense with their pass rush in the first, really 15-20 minutes of the game. And then what they did on top of that was Flacco was having a good, opening quarter, completed most of his passes, and he ended up getting the one touchdown pass to Torrey Smith. But after that, the Steelers really ran away with it. The Steelers would end up outscoring the Ravens 43-16 the rest of the way, en route to their third straight win, in order to improve to 6-3. Ultimately, what I liked about this game was how it went. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. For one, being a Steeler fan, because honestly, when it comes to being a Steeler fan, there's three goals every year. One, win the division. 2, win the Super Bowl. 3, beat the snot out of the Ravens. It's a necessity. Let's put it this way. The Steelers beating the Ravens in the NFL season is a necessity, kind of like eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner is, kind of like inhaling oxygen is, kind of like that, I love watching the Ravens get beat by the Steelers. It never gets old. But the story for this game, I think, has to be Ben Roethlisberger. 6 passing touchdowns for the second straight week. The only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 12 touchdown passes in the span of 2 games. Right now, if you statistically look at where Ben Roethlisberger stands, if you look at the game that he just played, I know you probably can hear the clicking of my mouse in the background. I'm going through, I'm adding numbers right now as we speak. In this game, he was 25 of 37 for 340 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Now, if you bear with me here, I'm going to show you exactly what makes that even better. Because I'm adding in that to go along with his season totals. He has completed 231 of 338 passes, which is 68%, for 2,720 yards, 22 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Ben Roethlisberger this season is on pace for these numbers: to complete 410 of 600 passes for 4,835 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. That's the season that Ben Roethlisberger is on pace to have. Now, and if you look at the Steelers' schedule the rest of the way, it is very, very conducive to that happening. Let's just look at it real quick. With the win over Baltimore, we've improved to 6-3, and we're now 2nd in the division and 5th in the race for the 5th in the wild card race in the AFC. The Jets and the Titans on the road are the next 2 weeks. Then we host the Saints the week after Thanksgiving, and then we go to Cincinnati for the next 4 games. That's 3. We can take 3 of those 4 games realistically. I think it's going to be hard to go into Cincinnati and beat the Bengals, but that's just me. But let's get back to this game at hand. What I love about the Steelers in this game, obviously, is the passing offense. They've continued to use Martavis Bryant, who's got 5 touchdowns in 3 games. The only other receiver to ever do that was Eric Green, I believe, back in 1990, also for the Steelers. Along with, even though he didn't accumulate much yardage, Le'Veon Bell still had a great game because he made the Ravens at least respect him, realizing that if we don't at least make some effort to try to get this guy down, for one, he's patient. He's going to try to find a hole. And number 2, we cannot play nickel and dime coverage every single play and expect Le'Veon Bell to get shut down. So even though the Steelers didn't run the ball, Bell's presence was all that was needed. But looking at the way that the Steelers' offense has produced points over the last 3 games has been nothing short of extremely impressive. Because if you look at the numbers they put up, they're averaging They're averaging 41 points a game over the last 3 games. 41 points a game. I've never seen the Steelers do this much scoring. But it's about time. It only took 11 years for the Steelers to realize that when you cut Ben loose and you give them the weapons, this is what you get. Yes, the defense is going to give up some more points because they're going to be put in more precarious positions, and also because of the fact that they're not going to have the playmakers the rest of the way. But the Steelers didn't need them because Ben is playing well enough right now. He's going to have to continue to be playing well, though. We can't afford to play this game and to continue to give up points and expect to win because the defense is stiffened. They got 23 to the Ravens, 34 to the Colts, and 23 to the Texans. Those totals are actually pretty impressive, considering the Colts scored a touchdown in garbage time. The Texans and the Ravens both did as well. So in reality, you can knock 21 points off of those totals, which is pretty impressive for the Steelers, considering those 3 offenses are pretty efficient. Now for the game. Terrell Suggs in this game, I think, proved how big an asswipe he really is. And that's not just trying to knock him because I respect the player, absolutely. Now, he has had a habit of absolutely kicking the shit out of Ben Roethlisberger his whole career. His whole career, he's made a career out of sacking Ben Roethlisberger. As a player, he is a truly gifted player. One of the top 5 pass rushers of this generation that goes alongside James Harrison and DeMarcus Ware. And speaking of James Harrison, what a game he put on, didn't he? 7 combined tackles, 2 sacks, numerous quarterback hits. The guy played the best game I've seen him play since he won Defensive MVP in 2008. The guy was on fire. There was really nothing the Ravens could do to shut him down. Once James Harrison felt that the game was, in position where he could go hunting, he went hunting. Let me tell you something. Be very, very quiet. He was hunting Flacco's. And let me tell you, he got to Flacco enough to win this game. Absolutely. The Ravens offense, I felt what they didn't do enough of was the short passes. I don't think what they realized was when they were moving the ball with the short passes to go 4 or 5 yards down the field and get up 6-7 yards of offense at a time, they're having a lot of success. In the first quarter they were, or parts of the third quarter and early parts of the fourth they just kept abandoning it for stupid reasons. I mean, whenever they did that, Harrison had no time to get to the quarterback, and at the same time they were eating up the Steelers' defense. But it seems like on those drives, they'd get a couple of those plays, they'd get into a third manageable, they'd try to back up, get some more yards to really get a good positioning after a first down, and James Harrison or Brett Keys or Cameron Hayward would just go hunting for Flacco's again. The way that I look at this game, this was a huge victory for the Steelers because what you've done now is you've essentially moved yourself to within half a game of the AFC North lead. And if you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, right now, their next game is at home against Cleveland. That's not a guaranteed win because of the way Cleveland's played this year. Cleveland this year has been extremely tough to beat. They've really been a tough team. And they're going to be a test for the Bengals. Let's not forget, if the Bengals lose to Cleveland and the Steelers go to New York and beat the Jets, which is entirely plausible, you do realize that the Steelers will be in first place in the AFC North. And I don't think anybody, after the loss to Cleveland on October 12th, thought that would even be a possibility. What the Steelers offense did against the Ravens was exactly the same thing they did against the Colts. They spread it out. They spread out the Ravens secondary. They got the ball out quickly. They let guys like Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Marcus Wheaton, even Heath Miller a couple times take advantage of some mismatches in the Ravens secondary. Honestly, even if the Ravens had Jimmy Smith, their other top corner, it would not have made a big difference. Ben might have thrown 2 less touchdown passes, but the Steelers still would have won, honestly. And honestly, I don't even think Jimmy Smith accounts to take 2 more touchdowns off the board, because of the fact that right now the Steelers may have given up the 3 sacks in a row early in the game, but which I believe was early in the second quarter. You take away those 3 sacks, Ben Roethlisberger stayed pretty clean the rest of the game. And yes, already I'm seeing on my Facebook newsfeed, Ben Roethlisberger's face, whenever he had his jaw knocked out of place by Haloti Ngata, is already turning into a meme. And I'm going to be honest, even as a Steeler fan, I find it pretty damn funny. Yeah, that's going to be a meme. But, very solid win. Very solid win by the Steelers, because they played the Ravens the way that they've not played the Ravens this way in years. The last time we went out and we absolutely bludgeoned the Ravens was in 2007 at home on Monday night. Ironically enough, we also honored a throwback, which was the 75th anniversary team. The way the Steelers had played that game where they just blew out the Ravens, Ben threw 5 touchdowns. Ben has a habit of throwing for a lot of touchdowns on primetime games against the Ravens. But in retrospect, what Ben Roethlisberger has done this year has put himself firmly in the candidacy for MVP. The thing about it that's going to hold Ben back is if the Steelers don't make the playoffs. If the Steelers don't make the playoffs, he's got no chance to win the MVP. But right now, if you look at the NFL standings and you look at the race for the playoffs, these are the teams right now that Pittsburgh is really fighting. Let's just put it this way. Let's just say the top 4 seeds hold, and the Patriots, Broncos, who will probably win their divisions by a mile, and the Colts, who are leading their division by a mile, win their divisions. Let's just keep that as such, and the Bengals somehow by some fluke win the AFC North. All right? These are the teams the Steelers have to play against. They have to play in order to keep a chance alive for a wild card. The Chiefs, the Browns, the Bills, and the Dolphins, which are all 5-3. Now, the Chiefs won today, the Browns won today, the Bills had a bye, the Bills were off, and the Dolphins won big. Miami has a lot of problems coming down the stretch because of the fact that if Ryan Tannehill does not throw for 3 touchdowns, they do not have a chance. And if you look at their schedule the rest of the way, they got to go to Denver, they got to host Baltimore, they got to go to New England, and they got to play Buffalo again. Buffalo already blew them out once this year, and they got to go to Detroit. So that's really a tough scenario. Kansas City, looking at them, they're right now the 6th spot in the AFC playoffs. They still got to host Denver. They got to come to Pittsburgh. They got to host the Chargers, which is going to be a tough game for them. They got to host Seattle in a couple of weeks, and they got to go to Arizona. That's going to be tough. You look at Cleveland, and if you look at Buffalo, Cleveland still go to Atlanta, has to host Houston, has to go to Cincinnati, go to Buffalo, host Indianapolis, go to Cincinnati. No, host Cincinnati, my bad. Those are not guaranteed wins. Those are going to be tough to come by. And we got the Bills, who have to play the Chiefs, play the Broncos, play the Packers, and play the Patriots. The way things are going right now, looking at the Steelers' schedule, let's just analyze it from top to bottom. They have 7 more games left. They go to New York to play the Jets. They go to Tennessee to play the Titans. They have a bye week, week 12, which will be perfect, because then they get 2 weeks to get prepared for Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, my second favorite team, who I hope the Steelers absolutely shred. They go to Cincinnati, go to Atlanta. They host Kansas City and they host Cincinnati to end the playoffs. Let's put it this way. I look at the New York and Tennessee games as win. I look at the New Orleans game as a win because at the very end of November, early December kind of weather in Pittsburgh, and Drew Brees, no offense to him, the fact that the Saints are not a good outdoor team, not really winning proposition for them. And if you look at their defense, it's been chewed up a lot, and Ben Roethlisberger's going to be licking his chops. The Cincinnati Bengals at Cincinnati, that could be a loss. I'll pencil that in as a loss. So right now, the Steelers are proved to 9-4 with 3 games left. And you look at Atlanta, which is, I think you can count that for a loss too because of the fact that it's going to be tough going on the road in that dome because Matt Ryan is so good at home. So it's 9-5. You look at it right now, the Steelers have a low-end estimate finish of 11-5. And given the fact that the Browns, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Dolphins all have really tough season-ending schedules, Steelers, if they can win 4 more games, that almost guarantees them a wild card spot. Almost guarantees them a spot. And if you look at the other contenders with 5 wins, San Diego and Baltimore, San Diego has looked dreadful the last 3 games because they got destroyed by Denver, destroyed by Miami. They lost the game at home to Kansas City. They should have won. And if you look at the game against Oakland, that was closer than it should have been too. They cannot run the football, and right now they do not have much pass rush. And they got to play Denver. They got to go to Baltimore. They got to play San Francisco. They got to go to Kansas City, who already beat them. And St. Louis has proven to be a good team on the road this year, especially with the way that they got after Colin Kaepernick. And if they can sack Colin Kaepernick 8 times, can you imagine what they're going to do to Phillip Rivers, who is literally as immobile as a statue? And as for the Ravens, them being 5-4 right now and in the cellar of the AFC North, at New Orleans is going to be really tough on Monday night because Drew Brees at home in the Dome on Monday night. That's almost like a knife versus a wet paper towel. It's going to be extremely tough. They got to go to Miami, who has played well as of late. They got to go to Houston, and they still have another game against Cleveland, which is not a guaranteed win. But right now, with the way the Ravens have been playing, they have a hurt secondary. Their offense has been mired in mistakes. Their penalties have been dumb. The Steelers right now, if they can stay consistent, they've got 8 games left. If they can win 5 of them, they've got 7 games left. My bad. If they can win 4 or 5 games, they will be in the playoffs, which nobody expected after losing to Cleveland a couple weeks ago. The Ravens, on the other hand, didn't do near enough in this game to win because they should have taken some more chances and tested the Steelers secondary. Honestly, the way that they did it was they only attempted like a handful of deep passes all game long, and they were mostly to Torrey Smith. And William Blake and Willie Gay did a pretty good job of holding down Torrey Smith. And besides, other than the long touchdown in the first quarter, I believe, they couldn't do shit. Here's where the Ravens have a problem. Their pass rush is good, but the rest of their defense is average. Their offense can move the ball consistently at times, but there are times when they get up against good teams in hostile environments, they have trouble. In Indianapolis, loud stadium against a team with a decent pass rush, headed by Bjorn Werner, that was a tough matchup. They go to Cincinnati, a tough place to play, which the jungle. They have to go against Geno Atkins, Vontaze Burfict in that tough defense. Not a winning battle. And then they come to Heinz Field and they play the Steelers defense, and that defense was aching for a shot at the Ravens. They were loving the thought of them playing them again. But for the Steelers, this is a big win. This is a huge win because we got beat by Baltimore by 20 in week 2, but to turn around and do it to them about 2 months later, it's nice. I gotta be honest. I have really enjoyed this game. I really did. So as of right now, I'm looking for Pittsburgh to possibly win the division because Pittsburgh's games from the rest of the way on out are winnable. But there still is a problem. If you look at the Mike Tomlin era of the Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly 2007...
Bengals reporter Coley Harvey, and I'm here with Jaguars reporter Michael.
Thank you, ESPN, for randomly popping that up while I was trying to do a segment. Thank you very much. As I was saying, the Steelers have had a problem against bad teams when they've been on a roll. They've had seasons where they've played and beaten the good teams and come up horribly short against the bad ones. You look at the 2019 for reference. A team that, in my opinion, with the schedule and the team, should have been a Super Bowl champion, because they should have won 14-2, not 9-7. They lose at home to the Bengals. Should have been a win. Should have been able to get more offense, and they couldn't. At Kansas City, blew a lead. Against the Ravens, blew a lead. Against the Raiders, should have been able to hold down that defense. At Cleveland, we should have absolutely bludgeoned them with Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball to Wallace, to Santonio Holmes, and to Hines Ward, and Heath Miller. And we didn't do it. And you look at the 2017, we lost at Baltimore in the season finale. We lost in New York to the Jets. We lost in Arizona to the Cardinals. 3 teams we should have absolutely crushed. Again, this worries me about the Steelers because we need to be able to beat the teams that we have no business losing to. We've already lost a game this year against Tampa we should never have lost. If we can learn from that mistake, because we've been 4-1 since that game and our offenses look pretty good, we have a chance. We do. I thought Tomlin was one of the better coached games of his career because amidst all the chaos, amidst all the emotion of Joe Green's retirement, amidst the chaos of Terrell Suggs and Elvis Dumerville wreaking havoc, the team held together because he did not allow them to make stupid mental mistakes. If you look at the box score for the game between the Steelers and the Ravens, it kind of proved it. It kind of proved itself right there, because the Steelers, known for penalties this year, they have 7, which is still high, but the Ravens had 10. The Ravens had more turnovers. And put it simply, in the third quarter, when shit got wacky, Tomlin did not allow his team to lose focus, and they ultimately put up 3 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That is pretty much what I gotta say for everything right now. I'll probably be doing a sports show Monday night after the game between the Colts and the Giants. I'll be doing a wrap up of week, what do you believe this, 9? I'll be doing that after I get off work. But as for right now, James Generic signing off.